Welcome to the Flora Archaeological Center at Ashland Theological Seminary. I'm retired Professor Emeritus Kenneth Walther from the Biblical Studies Department. When at the end of the 19th century, the noted British archaeologist and Egyptologist Sir Flinders Petrie crossed the Sinai Peninsula and entered the most southerly areas of the Palestine of his day, Sir Flinders observed a number of unusually shaped mounds. Upon further examination of some of these mounds, limited simply to his walking around them or on occasion climbing to the top of them, Sir Flinders uncovered pieces of broken pottery, fragments of pottery, and sometimes even whole objects protruding. Sir Flinders Petrie is credited with establishing the beginning stages of what we today recognize as the science of pottery chronology, used by archaeologists around our world. He determined that any one of these unusually shaped mounds, known in Semitic languages as either a tell, T-E-L, or T-E-L-L, meaning mound, preserve the remains of the inhabitants of former civilizations. These tells or mounds consisted of layer upon layer of human occupation. These tells or mounds would require systematic excavation to reveal a series of ancient cities, houses, household objects, temples, religious and domestic artifacts, shedding light on the life and times of both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Since the late 19th century and throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, a number of archaeologists have devoted their careers to excavating these unusually looking mounds and retrieving level by level artifacts for us to behold. These archaeologists have come from Europe, North and South America, Asia, the Near East, the Far East, and even the Pacific Rim. They have opened our eyes to what the texts of Holy Scripture have recorded. Through archaeological excavation, we in our day and age have contact with the life and times of people who lived centuries ago. If we could travel to Jerusalem and visit the modern Israeli museum there, we would see on permanent display, room after room, artifacts from all the major biblical periods. We also here at the museum, the Flora Archaeological Center, have tried to follow the way the museum in Jerusalem arranges the materials. And so we have 10 levels in this representative tell off to my right. And the periods extend sometimes as long as 1,000 years, maybe just 500 years, and a short period would be 300 years. So when we're talking about history in the Middle East, we're talking about millennia and long periods of time. Here at the Flora Archaeological Center, we have followed the same arrangement of objects in cases around the room, and then in this very special representative tell that has been provided for us by the art department at the university. There are over 1,200 objects on display within this one room, and they represent the artifacts of people over many periods of the ancient biblical world. The majority of objects are pottery or ceramic, but we also have artifacts in stone, metal, glass, even some pieces of fabric, that have been woven. And of course, we have writing on papyrus, parchment, and clay bricks. As I direct our attention now to this artistic representation of a tell, we need to provide two things that have motivated the way we display things in our tell. First, relative chronology, dividing periods so that we can date them and that we can place biblical events within a time frame. And then distinctive or characteristic typology. Different pieces will evolve over time. Vessels change over time, and that's what this tell is going to reveal. Vessels for water, cereal, grain, vessels for general storage, which may be very large, and then smaller domestic objects that would be used in the home. Ceramic lamps, bowls, juglets, some very simply made, others carefully crafted, some even painted. We should note in each object its size, its shape, its decoration, and then certainly to ponder, well, what would have been used for? As I direct our attention to this artistic representation of a tell, now I want to point out several objects that stand out and show us the development through the biblical periods. The first piece I've selected is from the middle of the mound or tell. It is a water decanter that dates from what we call the Iron Age II, 900 to 600 BCE, before the Common Era. It has a flat base, so it would be on a level table or display area. It has a slanted sides, which show that more water can be contained than if it were round. It has a double handle and then a raised rim. It's a beautiful piece. We find it in different sizes. It could be used for water, and so we're calling it a water decanter. It also could hold liquids and maybe even some ointments of some kind. It's a tremendous example of the technology that was available to the potters about 3,000 years ago. As I place this piece back in the mound, I will go down a level and I will go to the period of the patriarchs and matriarchs of the Old Testament. This piece represents the nomadic tradition, people traveling, moving as Abraham moved from Mesopotamia to Syria and through Palestine and then into Egypt. It has a bullet base, so it fits down in the sand or the dirt. It has a handle on it, so the water or the ointment can be poured. We find these sometimes 4 and 5 times this size. This would be a piece that would represent the domestic or household use of this vessel. Last but not least, in this development of the pieces on display from the Iron III period, the Persian period, we find a vessel that is very different. We move from bullet base to flat base to a more tapered vertical vessel that's painted. This looks like a Greek vessel, but it actually comes from the Persian period when the body of the vessel is highly painted and decorated. Once again, as we look at the pieces in the tell, I remind us that we're looking at pieces that will change radically sometimes as we move through periods. Size, shape, decoration will be important for us to look at. And then especially as we focus on that object, how was it used by the people who had that in their homes? From the Israeli Museum in Jerusalem, we have the full range of objects that they would have. We have tried to put in each of our levels, from Chalcolithic all the way through Persian, the pieces that they have in their collection and that they feel are characteristic of a particular period. So once again, we will move from the bottom of the mound, the Chalcolithic, to the early bronze, late bronze, Middle Bronze, Late Bronze, Iron Age I, Iron Age II, and Persian. Outside of the Old Testament period, we would move into the Hellenistic, Roman, and Byzantine. And even before the first period, the Chalcolithic, we would see the Paleolithic, the Neolithic, and following and built on top of the Byzantine period, the Christian period, we would have the Arabic, Turkish, and modern Israeli period. So we don't have all the levels here. But understand that in the ancient Middle East, over time, and with the use of different techniques, pottery will be the major object for dating of the levels.